Greetings and salutations, Scribblers. I hope your week has been amazing and you've gotten a lot of words in. Today, we are diving into more ways you can really deepen your characters and help get more readers more engaged with your story. So personally, I love characters with baggage and backstory. Getting that inside look at why they are the way they are is just fantastic. And since it's backstory, it's kind of like the highlight reel of how they came to be. So we only get those big moments and the big emotions. We like seeing those big moments, right? It's something that really speaks to us as human beings. So as authors, we get to arrange and curate those moments into what we think is going to do the best job of hooking our readers. A well-developed character is kind of like an iceberg. So the reader is only going to clearly see the top bit that's sticking out into the story, but beneath that is the absolute mountain of how they grew to be the way that they are. Our characters' actions are driven by desires that aren't explicitly on the page, so we should be hinting at them. But generally speaking, our characters aren't ready to face that truth about themselves, so they don't even realize why they're doing what they're doing. But as the author, we need to know. This is what allows us to guide that character through their character arc and monitor their decisions, their reactions, and their rationales. These glimpses into and hints about their lives before we meet them on the page is what allows us to understand their bad decisions as we're screaming at them to not do the thing that's going to absolutely ruin their lives. So this is really important to the reader that you know this, because otherwise we're not going to have that investment, right? Of course, the character in the romance isn't going to admit that they really want the love interest to walk them home or to help them out. It would mean admitting, that they like that person in the past. They only led to hurt and betrayal if they said that they like somebody. So we, the audience, know they should totally accept that offer of help, but we can also understand why they don't. So this is called dramatic irony. And that's when the audience knows or understands something that the character doesn't, and it's a first-class way of engaging the reader. Because we have all screamed at books, at TV screens, at movies. We're like, oh my gosh, why are you doing this? So how do we dig into and figure out those core moments and memories that created our characters? And quick note, this is something you're going to want to do for all of your big players, including your antagonist. Villains are so much more interesting when we start to understand the complex things that led them to do whatever bad thing they're doing. And this is not a quick note, I guess, because I'm going on, but a humorous look at this is there's a play about Jafar, and I can't think of what the name of it is now. You can Google it, though. If you go to YouTube and you look for the musical about Jafar, it's an entire musical that was written, and it kind of shows why Aladdin is maybe the villain in that story, and Jafar is maybe the good guy. And when you really start to consider his take on the story and the way that they present it, it changes everything. And I know I harp on this a lot, but it's the type of character work that will make readers become emotionally engaged with your character. And that is one of your goals as an author, is that you want that reader to be emotionally engaged. That's what makes somebody love a book, right? So one of the best things that you can do is to read Story Genius. It's a bit of a difficult read, but the methodology is solid. Basically, you look at your character's younger years and you choose 3 ways in which a mentality or misbelief about the world was created. So the character who is maybe hyper aware of their surroundings and how others are reacting to a situation may not have had a great childhood, right? You kind of like go back into their psyche and say, wait, why did they act like this? What happened that made them say, I always have to be hyper aware of my surroundings and what's going on? Another book that I really love to use to dive into my character's psyche is The Writer's Guide to Character Traits by Linda Edelstein. This is a great one it gets into why we think the way we do on different things, and age patterns, right? Stages of development. So it'll have a section about like death of a loved one. And it'll say, if you're between the ages of 1 and 5, it affects you this way. If you're between the ages of 5 and 12, it affects you this way. If you're an adult, it affects you this way. And so it's really, really cool because you get that insight into those things, because it's difficult, right? As writers, we have to wear so many hats and understand so many different things. And if we're going to have a character who has something happen to them in the past, it's important to understand how that situation would affect them, right? So it's another really great book to use, and it really helps you understand a situation and how that can grow into unresolved baggage. A quick way to put this into practice is to take a moment from your story and start to pick apart what's going through your character's mind and what past experiences have led to their understanding of this moment. So let's pretend our character just graduated college and got their first office job. Congratulations to them. 2 weeks in, their boss does a check-in, reviewing what they're doing well, what they could put more attention to, because they want them to be successful. This is their first ever performance review, and their immediate conclusion is that their boss hates them and is about to fire them because they have dared to tell them what they need to improve on. So, while it's entirely possible that the boss is trying to fire them, what's more likely is this character had like a 4.0 in high school, in college, and although people have tried to give constructive feedback, they basically ignored it because they don't need people to tell them what to do, right? Their past experiences have shaped how they're engaging with the specific moment. From there, dig deeper. Go back to when this person was maybe 12, right? Was there something that happened to them during, like, let's say a sporting event? Maybe a coach spoke with them about being more of a team player and looking for someone that they could pass the ball to rather than just dominating the court on their own. But instead of taking that advice, they continued to keep control and scored almost all the points during the game. And that kind of reinforced the idea that they don't need coaching. They don't need to be told what to do. They're already perfect and able to win. And by the way, did I mention that this was the basketball game that got their team into the state championship? So this was a big deal, right? This means this is probably a core memory for that character. It's a moment charged with emotion. And then afterwards, everyone was praising them and celebrating their success. So it's going to influence and reinforce that idea that they don't need to have anybody help them out. They don't need anybody telling them what's going wrong because they are not doing anything wrong and they're very capable, right? So that's going to then influence them taking that performance review and being told, like, here's the things that you need to improve on, because they're not going to be able to handle that. They can't. They're using that 12-year-old framework to still set up what's going on with the older person. So you might not explicitly bring these moments onto the page of the story, but they're things that you as the author need to know about your characters in order to just really bring them to life. So again, what the reader sees on the page is only the tip of the iceberg. There's always a lot going on under the water. And as the author, it is your job to understand how all of that creates the characters that we present to our readers. All right, Scribblers, that's our video for today. If you're looking for more help with character development, be sure to check out our character developmental course. The link is in the description down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Happy writing, Scribblers.